Come on, Brett. Brett was going to announce us. This is our first live into the Inner Lenses channel. This is episode 66. You won't have seen episode 63 through to 65 as yet. Gary Kennedy said in our last recording that he would like to have a conversation about sustainable, equal, and just societies. Jonathan Frost made the comment that the people of Bhutan are very happy. And I decided for this little live, we can all be the Bhutan clan. And we're going to have a conversation about how we bring just, sustainable, and ongoingly fair community to places around the world. Welcome to the Inner Lenses. Who wants to kick us off? Jonathan, tell us about Bhutan.
My understanding is that Bhutan has the highest happiness index of any country in the world, and the stated mission, my understanding of the Bhutan government, is to maximize the people's happiness rather than the GDP. My understanding is that they're one of the few countries in the world where the forest cover is increasing, and there's I think it's president of Bhutan is basically on board with this idea of really focusing on the deep inner peace and happiness of the population, which I think is quite a good starting point. So yeah, thanks very much. I say my phrase is global village. If we think of ourselves as a one global village and we all want to sort of move towards a bit more equality, a bit more happiness, a little bit less consumption, we're probably going in the right direction. So yeah, thanks. Bhutan seems to be a place to emulate.
Where would we find Bhutan on a map?
In the Himalayas.
Yeah, next to India.
Next to India.
I just Googled it because I wanted, I have to go and read or whatever. So I'm going to read quickly just a quick snapshot of what it is and see if we can pinpoint what the most important parts of what makes this the place that it is, so that maybe we can focus on that. So it says it's famous for its unique development philosophy of gross national happiness, GNH, which prioritizes citizen well-being over economic output, its pristine Himalayan landscapes and status as the world's only carbon negative country, its distinct, I'm going to butcher this, but I'll try it, Vajrayana Buddhist culture, and its unique approach to tourism with its high daily visitor fee and mandatory tour operators. The country is often called the land of the thunder dragon and last Shangri-La due to its traditional way of life, vibrant festivals, and commitment to preserving its natural environment and culture.
Give us GMH again. Gross measure of happiness.
GN, gross national happiness.
Gross national happiness. What about that?
Yeah, Bhutan. Sorry.
Go on.
Yeah, Bhutan is very much based on community Gary talked about. So, for example, if a couple marries and they need a house, the community comes together and builds the house for the couple. So they don't have to invest money or get a mortgage from a bank. The electrician will come and help them out. The bricklayers will come. Whoever has a profession will come and do its part. And when they get married or they need a house, they will get the same help from the community. So it's really community based. And that's what's so different about Bhutan. And I think we all know that, well, at least you know that I always say we're living in modern slavery because we're all enslaved to the banks. Because you go studying, you already have your debts, right? Before you're even 24, you're already drowning them. Then you have a mortgage, this and that. So we're all enslaved to the banks. It's modern slavery. And I'm wondering, is this maybe why Bhutan has so much happiness? Because they're free and not enslaved to institutions.
Let me read the quick before you go, Gary. So because we're here trying to talk about how we can take the foundations of what we're seeing works over there and try to build our own, however, right? So the philosophy behind this is its guiding principle is the GNH, gross national happiness, which focuses on holistic well-being, encompassing psychological health, education, time use, cultural diversity, good governance, community vitality, and ecological resilience and living standards. So that's the philosophy behind all of this. So now that we have all of those ingredients, what do we do with it? That's the question.
Gary.
So we often talk as coaches about not chasing happiness. Happiness shouldn't be our goal. So my question is a basic one, really. What do we mean by happiness?
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head earlier with a comment that was that it isn't the materialistic. And, you know, I was thinking back when Erika was like mentioning the first stuff about the building of the houses. I'm aware of American communities where they used to gather and do a house raising. I mean, to me, being in the arms of a community that gathered around me to make sure that I had the core Maslow part of the pyramid, in terms of shelter, warmth, comfort, you know, and in fact, because you've got that community, you're already going rungs up the pyramid. That would be a long way for me towards being happy. The older I've got, the less material stuff I've needed, the more I've valued my friends, my connections, those sorts of things. Physical health, yes, it's important, but you know, I'm probably in the worst physical condition of my life and the best mental condition. So I don't know if that goes any way towards answering your question.
So the fact that everybody is contributing. So once use the example of somebody getting married, you get an electrician, you get a builder, you get whatever it is gathering around. That is, yeah, the couple are receiving, but everybody else is contributing. Everybody else is giving, which is giving a sense of purpose, isn't it? And that's, again, that's taking you up further up that the Maslow hierarchy. In fact, it's beyond the word's gone out of my head. Self-actualization. It's other. It's concentrating on not just me, but on everybody else. So it's not me, me, me. What can I have? It's what can I give? What do you reckon?
Absolutely, and we all know this feeling sometimes. I remember one of my happiest moments ever when it comes to celebrating. It was celebrating my sister and my brother-in-law's birthdays. They had both round birthdays, and my father and I gave them the dream to go to a tango school in Argentina because they loved dancing tango, Argentinian tango. I never felt so happy in my life actually receiving a gift. Giving the gift gave me so much more happiness at the time, and seeing them. My sister started crying, right? So, and I think we all have experienced the beauty of gift giving rather than taking.
I've got my allotment down the road, and the sort of the most purposeful, peaceful, happiest I am is giving one of my neighbours a hand cutting the hedge. So I'm totally with you. It really is a genuine joy, and it's as Gary's saying, it's all very Maslow: contribution, connection, little bit of significance. Thanks.
So at the moment, I'm visiting my daughter, and I'm in London. And as I came out of their apartment door, there was a box of apples outside of somebody's house, and it said, feel free to take me. You can make apple crumble with me, and whatever it is. They're not going to see the results of people taking the apples. They've just put it out there. And I thought, wow, what a wonderful way to contribute to selflessly to your community.
Before I moved, I had a couple of neighbours around me that had allotments, but they'd had the common sense, or maybe, the wisdom is better put, to have worked out what each of them were going to grow. So, in First Nations cultures, we often saw crops grown around other crops, for various reasons. But this was specifically done because they knew that they were going to end up with more than they could use, and rather than all of the neighbours trying to get rid of tons of tomatoes to all of the other neighbours, it's like, let's share the over harvest by, you're going to get beans from me and you're going to give me tomatoes. I mean, if that is not Jonathan's sort of community contribution, storytelling, looking after one another, I don't know where I've got a better example of it. And it just made for such a nice feeling in that little cul-de-sac in which I lived. And, we're talking about an estate on the outskirts of Swindon. Does it really have a right, in air quotes, to feel like any other or any better than any other close in a similar position? No, but it did. Why? Because the people had consciously decided to contribute and to look after one another.
I think what I'm hearing is, and I don't know if it can be achieved in large communities, right? Like, I feel like there's something to the intimacy, the tightness of the community that allows this to be so successful. Some of us are not used to people wanting to help us for no other reason other than I just want to help you. There's always an ulterior motive, or I'm helping you because this is what I'm going to get back from that, or something, right? So the bigger the community gets, I think maybe the harder it is to navigate that, right? When you have a tight knit community of everybody rowing in the same direction, wanting to support, you're invested in each other. It's hard to do that when there's a large community, to be invested into everybody to the same degree. That's what I'm hearing off the top of this conversation. But what I'm focusing on when I was reading all of that, I'm the word tradition stuck out to me. Like, it was like, this is a thing that perhaps for us to explore how important tradition is in creating these kind of communities, right? Well, everybody bonding together. I mean, look, we're all in ecology. We have a tradition of reading a manifesto at every event. There's a reason for that. It binds us. There's a common belief that we're all celebrating and doing. So, thoughts about that being like a necessary part of building a sustainable community, developing traditions and actually sticking to them?
I think I heard a couple of things there, Erika. And one of the first things was about, we were talking about fear in our previous episode. This is the opposite, isn't it? This is about building up trust. This is about knowing who your neighbors are. Years ago, I lived in Bolton in a little cul-de-sac, and there were several Muslim families there. There was a couple of Hindu families. There were Christian families, and we all celebrated together each other's celebrations. We went round to one another's houses. I mean, we didn't, we went in each other's houses all the time, but at times of festivals, we would celebrate with the other. And so there was this feeling that in spite of our diversity, and you think, oh gosh, how does a community like that get along? We made the effort. And it was a deliberate choice by each family to do that, to go out of their comfort zones and to say, look, we're human here. And it was a really lovely place to be.
And again, that is so different to, the earlier episode that our viewers will not have seen yet, where we're talking about the false news and we're seeing, immigrants throwing away phones and passports before they land on the shores of that is a message of fear and division and control, being perpetuated by whoever, media. Whereas what you've just described, and I've had some experience of myself, is the openness of community and the fact that without exception, my experience has been that when I connect with another human in a humanistic way, regardless of who we are or from what country or what background or belief, we at the most basic grassroots level see connection rather than division. And it is only when organisation and media and people with a vested interest decide to stick their oar in that we start to see anything differently to that. I went to a goat grab in the Emirates, didn't have a clue what it was. It was literally a roast goat and some breads and salad and stuff. And I mean, you've never seen a goat stripped of its meat so quickly. There were so many hands. And then it was up to the next villa or the next place that had something going on. And I made so many friends in that evening. No, they're not friends in the sense that you guys are. And I've not retained contact with them. But that community in which I was living in Fujairah in the Emirates, I just felt safe. I was welcomed. People would nod and smile and wave. I remember one day walking down the road towards the dive college I was working, and I was kind of looking at my feet, and I wasn't in a slump or anything, but I became aware of this sort of face looking up at me from underneath, and they were literally so concerned that I appeared glum that they had taken that effort. Can you imagine being in a city in England and putting yourself in that position? And I looked at them and they were like, smile, and we couldn't speak the same language, and I kind of gestured, oh, I'm all right, I'm okay, I'm happy, and got big thumbs up. What it did, although I never met any of those people again, it was a kind of collective vibe in the community that meant people didn't feel at risk of behaving that way. So when we look back at the stuff that Erika dropped in the chat about psychological health, diversity, community vitality, I didn't even realize I was experiencing those things. And it's giving me a real sense of hope that this Bhutan clan thing could actually spread.
First of all, I just noticed my reactions, right? When people say stuff. So that's why I always give these sighs, because I just spit it out. But as you were talking, this is a whole nother conversation that we don't have to have here, but I find it very interesting the way that I reacted to somebody slumping down and putting a smiley face directly in the front of my travel. Like, I don't know. We could talk about this another time because it's not fitting into this conversation, but let's shelve that. I don't know. It feels like, hey, looking out for you kind of thing, but I find it a little like, I'm okay. Don't get in my space like that too much. So when we're talking about community, what I really wanted to say was I have to pose this idea. So we have this community here that has these theories and this philosophy, and they're known for this general national happiness thing. I can't discount that human nature is still human nature, right? Like, not everybody, there has to be times where people are not vibing, not getting along. What happens then? What do you do in those situations when the philosophy is to all go the same way, build up each other? Human nature comes in, or doesn't it? Where I might not like that person. I don't know. Like, at the core of things. Does that exist? Is this a made up thing? I don't know. What happens? Anybody?
There was a book written a few years back now called The Meaning of Tingo. And Tingo, Tingo, was this thing that happened on Easter Island. And if the community didn't like you, they would come to your home and they would take things from your home until you had nothing left. And the message, they didn't bash you out with sticks or anything like that. But the message was quite clear. Find yourself another community. And I guess, if people, like when you guys visit me, if you start leaving with things, I'm going to know that our friendship needs some work. Gary looks horrified.
Yeah, I think that could have a real dark side to it. There could be any reasons why you don't like somebody. I don't like the way you look, so I'm going to take away things. I don't want you in my community. That's worrying.
Not an individual thing. I mean, I suppose if we're looking at the darker side of human nature, and I'd rather we tried to stay with the Bhutan clan, then yeah, I guess there could be sort of Machiavellian machinations. There's a bit of yeah, but I think generally speaking, I mean, it's not. It was not that long ago that we all lived in small communities and we all knew how to get along. Ultimately, the Industrial Revolution brought us into metropolis. So I get what you're saying, Erika, but I think the other, however many 100,000 years of civilization, human society, probably tells us more truth about it than the last couple of hundred.
Yeah, that's the connection, like what Erika was saying about the number, and then there's that technicality, the Dunbar number, whichever one it is, 250. And what's the size of a traditional Old English village? About 150, 250 people. There's a blacksmith, a baker, a teacher, a certain number of farmers, a certain number of workers, and you will know all 250 people, and there's no hiding, and that does help with trust, because you can't, if you cheat one other person, all 250 will know instantly. So I think that's the connection with your Tingo, is that if someone is found to be cheating, the whole neighborhood says, I think we're pretty certain you're cheating people, so the payback is you're going to be communist and give us a little bit back of your wealth until you rediscover your inner peace and start not cheating again.
So we started this conversation ultimately wanting to have a conversation about how can we create sustainable communities such as this. So are we funneling that down to the size of the community definitely matters in order to keep this level of community involvement and support? Do we think once it starts reaching larger scale, it's harder to sustain it? I don't know.
Jonathan mentioned the Dunbar number, and part of that research was that around about to 150, 250 people, that's when traditionally a community would split, and it wouldn't be. Think of it more like the separation of an egg rather than like splitting off and becoming, you're them and we're us. It was just moving the people in the group, making it bigger and potentially more successful. So moving away from the same hunting and fishing grounds, the same, this, we're very much talking about lever culture here. So we weren't picking all of the crops dry, all the berries off all of the trees. And then presumably those communities would carve away again. But we also had better ways within human society then of making sure that those villages stayed connected. They would come back together to celebrate, like Gary was saying. Those groups would intermarry rather than marrying within those smaller communities, and so we didn't get the separation. The Dunbar bit is the people that you can know really well, and that number is where they sort of tended to separate away, but the community still stayed healthy and strong.
But the question is, by creating bigger communities, is it really human nature? I mean, what is human nature? That's really if people say to me, well, human nature is that we are lying, that we're cheating. Who says? Who came up with that narrative? I think human nature is that we want to stay safe. Human nature is to have community and friends. So the question is, because we have bigger communities and now we're not seen anymore by everyone because we live in a city of 5 million people, and if I cheat and I'm naughty, 4 million and whatever don't know. Right? So if I piss off my little group of 5 people I know, I can easily get another 5 people, because they won't know. So am I getting away with it? Is this why we suddenly think, it's okay to lie because we get away with it? There's plenty of other people. So if you live in a small community, you might not get away with things, and you need the community to be safe. So is safety the real human nature, and we just start cheating because we're in big enough a community to know we get away with it? Does that make sense?
I think that probably always happens no matter how big the community, but then it's a question of how does the community deal with that? What is the restitution going on there? What is the negotiation? How do you bring that back together again? And I think that's quite a big thing. What do you reckon?
That's exactly where I was about to go.
Yeah.
So First Nations culture, if people were caught cheating, they were divisive. They were not working for the good of the community. They would go through a process of sending the young man or woman out to do something like a vision quest, or to spend time alone out in the wilderness, where it became very, very obvious very quickly how important being in that community was. And to say that the person came back chastened or wiser is fairly obvious. I think it goes in the tail. But we also saw different ways of community, like mediation. You just dropped some stuff in the chat about the way Bhutan does this. In the Council of Elders of Indigenous people globally, I'm talking from an anthropological perspective here, had this. We didn't have a single leader who made all the decisions. It was a group of wise people, maybe a little Bhutan clan like we have here, who actually were able to mediate, actually able to speak into situations with wisdom and with calmness and compassion, and help people to see the error of their ways. It's only when societies get bigger and organizational, and normally someone's, you pay me and I'll look after your crops kind of thing, that we go down the routes of laws and criminal justice.